Okay, so raid testing, to our knowledge, for Heroic has now concluded. They have tested the first 8 bosses in the raid. I'll draw a map of where you encounter them later, but it's over. So we see the concepts for every boss. They're still adding some mythic mechanics to a few, but we've seen all the bosses. So what I'd like to do is rate them, show you guys some footage, talk about them a little bit, and rate them for where they are in the raid. Now, I don't mean just like overall, like if you're going to rate a first boss, you're not going to rate it against like Sylvanas and Sire Denathrius, right? You're rating the first boss of a raid against Shriekwing, against Terrorgrew, against bosses like that in the past. How does it stack up conceptually to other bosses in the past? Talk about it a little bit. And there's a couple of really cool fights in there, but there's also definitely a couple of stinkers. So this is them on Anduin. We'll get back to that. We'll do them in order. Also, I just want to show you guys kind of the path that this raid is going to go. So fucking forgive me because this is going to look so fucking dog shit, but hopefully I can do it as best as I can. Solitary Guardian, I believe, is the name of the first boss. Solitary Guardian. You'll notice a very, very similar path in this raid to Castle Nathria, actually. So Solitary Guardian goes this way and then this way. Just like right after Shriekwing, you can pick one of 2 directions. If you go to the top, you are put into a... you're in a straight line, very similar to if you go left in Castle Nathria. In Castle Nathria, you went left and you did Huntsman, you did Hungering Destroyer, and you did Enerva. In this raid, you will go left, and you will be able to choose, or not choose, but do in a line, Dausegne into Prototype Pantheon. And then we have Lihuvim, okay? We need to come up with a cool name for Lihuvim. We thought about Larry, but we've used that this expansion. That name is actually so... I will never say that name like more than 10 times from now once we figure out a good name for it. Okay, so we have that. Lithium. Oh, that's not bad. Like the battery. Okay, so then you guys have this. So now you guys have 2 choices. Okay, so you kill Solitary Guardian, and I believe you can go to either Skolex or Artificer Xy'mox. Okay, so you can choose either one of those, but both of the bosses have to be dead to fight Halondrus, which was the boss we tested on Thursday. You kill Halondrus and you kill Lihuvim, the 2 wing end bosses. That allows you to fight Anduin. I probably could have spaced this out better, but you know what it is. Okay, so what are you guys noticing, right? Solitary Guardian, Dausegne, Prototype, Lihuvim, Shriekwing, Huntsman, Hungering Destroyer, Enerva. Solitary Guardian, Shriekwing. You can choose between Sun King or Old Artificer Xy'mox, right? And then you can do Council, or Skolex, Artificer Xy'mox, and then this. It's the exact same as Castle Nathria, I believe. Wow, this actually does look like a dick. This really looks like a penis. Okay, so you kill Anduin, and then after Anduin, which would be the Sludge Fist in this example from Nathria, you can go kill another 2 bosses. Okay? This is not looking good, but that's okay. And then after Anduin, you can pick between, like, I forget what it's called. It's like the Dreadlord Council and Rygalon. Okay? And then after these 2 bosses are both dead, you can go fight the Jailer. So that's how this raid will work. So far, we have tested Solitary Guardian, Skolex, Xy'mox, Dausegne, Halondrus, Prototype, Lihuvim, and Anduin. We have not tested these last 3, and in case you haven't been around, what Blizzard has said, they have not like fully like confirmed that they're doing this, but from what's happened so far, it highly suggests that they are doing it because they've concluded heroic testing, basically. They are not testing these last 3 bosses on heroic or mythic, and they might not even test Anduin on mythic. This is going to be the least information we have going into a raid in a long time. Now, you guys might be like, oh, well, you're doing all these bosses, but I'm gonna be honest with you guys. These bosses are not really made for the Race to World First. They're not tuned for the eye level we'll have. They usually die in less than a day or 2. 80 to 90% of the Race to World First in time it takes to clear it is entirely the last 3 or 4 bosses of a raid, usually the last 2. 80 to 90% of the next raid will be done with absolutely no visual information on the fight whatsoever. And yes, we do have the Dungeon Journal, but I cannot describe to you how different your outlook on a fight is based on seeing it versus that. So really fucking cool. This will be one of the coolest Race to World First to watch, basically no matter what. Or the bosses will be totally fucking broken and it'll be a nightmare. But it's probably the first one, right, guys? Haha. Okay, so Starting with Solitary Guardian. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. Max, this is the first boss? It's not trash? Yes. For you guys who are old as fuck like me, you're like, wait, is this like Hellfire Assault from HFC? Yes, that's exactly what this is. This fight is this simple. There are 4 adds, these big boys, and adds spawn like over and over again across the room. Every time you kill a small ad, the energy feeds into a medium ad. When you kill the medium ad, the energy feeds from the medium ad into the big ad. The big ad gets full energy, it puts down a shield, and it saves you from the boss burning the phase. Very similar to Dark Animus, if you remember that. Obviously, Dark Animus was a great, really hard boss, but this one is just ad. It's just fucking dog shit ad fight. So hopefully they pull it here soon. The actual boss is in the wall, but you don't get to fight him later. I will say the end of the boss is actually pretty good first boss. But I'm just going to go ahead and start a poll here and let you guys watch it. Basically, what you do in Heroic is you sit just... Okay, so they're going to kill this Custodian. They're going to kill, like, the high energy mobs. And this energy here is going to get brought into the closest big ad to you. So it'll be that right here. Okay, they haven't fully charged it up yet. They need to kill a few more ads. Let me skip ahead. Okay, so now this ad gets enough energy from ads dying, and he's like, oh, I'm a robot. And then he stands up, right? Like robots do. And he puts down a shield around him. Now, you need to be in this shield when this little bar up here hits 100, or you all get burned real bad. It's like 150k damage per tick or something. Like, you can't get hit by it. So you have to stay in that. The thing is they last forever, or at least they last until the boss does his little fuse thing. In Heroic, this was really slow. So I can identify right now as a concept this is bad. If you look in the past... Any fight where it's just like an AoE fight, Hellfire Assault, Galacrass, like I'm talking like just every fight you can think of, it's always dog shit, straight up. It's really, really fucking bad. Not a huge fan. Even if they were to make it so you don't just stand in this circle, dodge frontals, and just AoE ads mindlessly with no chance of death, they could do that. They could make it so you have to properly time this ad's energy. It lasts indefinitely right now until the boss does this burn thing at the top, which you'll see. They could make it so you have to be, like, precise with ads, and you have to, like, charge up a thing at the exact right time. Can you see that the other energy has already gone to this other ad? So they have 2 ads up right now. They're not even using it. So, like, you know, you should make this much faster, but even then, it's just AoEing. It's just AoEing on a target, and then you'll notice the thing at the top. It's about to burn. Okay, now this thing's burning. Exposed core. Ah! So if you're outside during the exposed core, you get dunked on. Look, so Kalamazi goes out there for some reason, and that's exactly what happens to him. Maybe he was testing it. He looks surprised, maybe not. And then, so that's it. And then that ad goes away because his shield was up while that thing was burning. Now, the other one that was alive also did that. Now, when these things die, they drop an unstable core or something like that. Some kind of core. You can see it on the ground right there. And you can yeet that in the thing. As you guys saw from the streamable from Echo or anyone else, if you, like, mouse wheel interacted with it, or you had multiple people throw at the same time, you could dupe them and actually one-shot the boss. Basically, the boss at 100% right now, when you throw a core at it, it will go down, and then once it gets to 40%, which is after 4 cores, supposed to be 4 cores, the boss comes out, you fight him from 40 to 15, and then after that, 15 to 0. I do really like the 15 to 0 part, though. But let's just kind of... Okay, so the boss comes out, his ass rolls out of the wall. Turn your camera. Turn your camera. There you go. He rolls out like a fucking, like a thing, and Evade got fucking ran over the first pull this happened. That fucking kills you if it rolls you over, by the way. So this thing comes out at 40%. You fight him from 40 to 15. Yeah, he does, like, he puts some antimatter stuff on people. It probably killed a lot of them on the first pull because you kind of need to know what to look for. You'll see, like, little balls, these. So they, like, spawn on you. They could actually spawn on pets. They come towards the boss. You'll see it spawn in, like, 2 seconds. Those things. It's like a one-shot if you get hit by it. Okay, that's basically the whole mechanic. The fight's really easy. One more thing happens in this fight. Now, I will say this is the plus part of the fight. I like this a lot. They get the boss to 15%, and then he stops whatever he's doing. He stops all of his mechanics, and he just does incrementally more damage to you, and you just have to kill him before he kills you. That's awesome. Any fight that does that, really, like, that's always a cool mechanic. Yeah, so I'm a big fan of the end, but the first part sucks real bad. So I would rate this boss... You have to think about what you're comparing this boss against. So Terragru, Shriekwing, last expansion. We are comparing a testing version of a boss to bosses that have already been done on Mythic and had multiple months more development time and are already a thing. So it is not quite fair to compare them to like their mythic versions, what they ended up being, but just purely off of concept, I fucking hate this boss. I think this is going to be an absolute chore. No one will look forward to this. No one will care about it. And I don't think you want that. I would give this boss like for a first boss, I will say it does one thing. So this raid has very unique looking mechanics because we're in this place that makes no sense. You can walk on water for some reason and shit like that, right? So a lot of the mechanics look different. You have frontals you'll see on Lihuvim later that look different than any frontal you've ever seen in this game. So it has like very unique animations for how things work. And this boss shows you a lot of that. Like, it's like, oh, what the fuck is this? Okay. But like, there's a lot of shit that looks like that in the raid. So it is, if you want to make an argument as a dev that it's like setting the scene for the raid, sure, right? So maybe it gets a few points for that because it does do that well, and the raid does look pretty different than most raids. But overall, the boss kind of sucks my whole dick. It's bad. So 2 out of 10, 1 out of 10, something like that. So let's move on. Let's do the left side of the raid first, and then we'll go back to the right wing just to keep it in theme. So let's talk about Dausegne. I'm going to give you guys my initial impression on this boss. It fucking owns. This is one of the better... Okay, it's weird to call this a second boss because in this raid format, you can choose 3 bosses to be second. Very similar to Castle Nathria. Although I will say in Castle Nathria, they were not really tuned to be the same difficulty. Huntsman was clearly easier than Xy'mox and Sun King. I mean, by far. I mean, it was a one-shot. I mean, the boss was a total joke. Those other bosses were not that on the first day. So maybe the last time in a raid where you had this boss was tuned to be easier than these two. I don't know if that will continue to be the case, but it is the same format. I really hope not, because Dausegne is a far better boss than these other two. Dausegne is one of the best bosses in the raid. So basically how it works is this. So the boss has like 2 distinct phases, kind of. The boss spawns some ads that come in, Domination Core. They poop around where the boss is and you want to kill them. They spawn these things, but then they have these rings. Now these rings, by the way, this is literally one boss frontal. You guys see this? That's what the frontal is on this boss. So you have to be a little bit more precise with positioning. When you cross through this ring, it gives you I think it's a 6-second debuff on heroic. He'll get it in 2 seconds. Yeah, 6-second debuff, and it basically makes you die if you get hit by another ring. This is not relevant now because there's no other rings, but there will be later. It's just a boss that like progressively gets harder. It's pure single target. There's no damage stops. There's no phasing. There are a little bit of burst damage phases. So I'll fast forward a little bit. Throughout the time in the boss, she will do more frontals like that. You have to kill an ad that spawns on the boss. That's fine. And then she's going to port to a part of the room that you'll know about ahead of time. Okay. And then she's going to siphon reservoir. This is doing 2 things. It's going to fucking own your raid. Look at their health. Okay. It's like actually doing, like, going to do a ton of damage on Mythic. I mean, this is on Heroic, and it's already, like, you know, owning them. And it's basically a shield you have to break to get her to stop. It's a 30-second channel. You can wait out the 30-second channel, but also imagine doing that. So you break this, but not only as she's channeling is she owning you, but she's also activating this pillar right here, and she's draining it and refilling her mana. Okay? Now what happens is when she casts Disintegration Halo, not only is it going to do the first one again, okay, like right now, should be like right after this, right? There. Okay, so that one goes off, but now there's 2. Oh, they were in an unfortunately bad spot for that. Also, a lot of them are going to die here, right? They're not prepared for this. Yeah. But you get the idea, right? So you guys hear those cops back there? They were calling for all these fucking ranged in this corner because that was not what they wanted to happen. So basically, you need to go through the rings and have that happen. Obviously, throughout the fight, there becomes 2 rings, 3 rings, 4 rings, right? Obviously, this incentivizes things like blinks and stuff like that. You'll see guilds deal with this boss in a variety of different ways. But it's really fucking cool. It's basic enough, but it's just like basically a damage check, and the mechanic is hard enough. Now, let me talk about what it's going to be on Mythic, since right now we're talking about on Heroic. On Mythic, think Sisters of the Moon. When you cross through this thing like he is right here, whenever you cross through a halo, you will do a 3-yard ring around you of damage that does 70k, basically lethal damage. You can live it, kind of, but like basically lethal damage to anyone around you. So you can't stack the raid and go through these. You have to spread out as a group to go through these rings. Now, early in the fight, that might be a little easier, but later in the fight, you know, when you're doing this 4 times in a row, you're gonna see people do some shit. I'm not really gonna talk about what works or what doesn't work. Just know that, yeah. So that's basically all there is this fight, to be honest with you. There's not much more. This conversation does not have to be super long. Just gonna video quality. Oh, am I watching it? Oh, I am watching it in 480p on purpose, aren't I? Oh, that's not good. Okay, I'll let you see like the rings one more time. Okay, so you see what they're doing this time. They were like, all right, let's get hit by this one early. I like that. Okay, so he ended up cutting it, but that's it. This boss is like the 9 tier banger. 10 out of 10. This is an actual borderline perfect fight design for an early boss in the raid with very little mechanics. It's clearly punishing. There's absolutely cheese ways to get around the rings and stuff like that, obviously, but a lot of people won't have access to it. It's very good. It's a very good fight. Okay, Skolex. Let's talk. Oh no, let's keep it in the thing. So he probably did prototype Pantheon the other day. So this boss is kind of hard to tell. Let me try to. I should try to find their best pull. So basically, the fight works like this. There's 4 prototypes. Each one is from a different covenant. So it's super epic. So the fight starts, and you guys have prototype of duty and prototype of I think is it war? It's the Kyrian and the Necrolord prototype. So basically, they spawn these ritualist ads that have to be killed. Until they're killed, they're channeling this green shit. When they die, it goes away. I think they're letting like Moonkins kill them or something. I don't know what's going on with the ads. Looks like they're about to die because the range are coming back. But yeah, okay, and then the boss is going to put down these 2 shields. Following that, the prototype of war after this Gloombolt cast probably is going to put out 2 debuffs. Oh, they're already out. So you have to go into these things to get dispelled in those debuffs. If you get dispelled outside of it, it's basically going to fuck your ass up. It's going to kill you most likely and also anyone else around you. So that's basically what that's for. So these 2 bosses interact in a way. Okay, the prototype of duty, the Kyrian boss, goes up in the air. You can hit her as a melee if you jump, but it's like ideal for like melee downtime during that to hit another boss. It knocks you back and does a decent amount of damage. These little things hitting the ground, these spears are, I think it's the prototype of duty that does this. They're not really relevant, you just dodge them, but they do work exactly. I'm going to date myself here as well. It works exactly like Beast Lord Darmak from Blackrock Foundry. I don't know if you guys remember that. Someone will probably get hit by it later. But like if you get hit, you get stunned and you have to either like bop it, immune out of it, or someone has to kill your spear to get out. It's the exact same mechanic basically. Okay, so this is interesting. To end P1, you have to get one of them to 50%, not both, to end the duty and war phase. Now you fight the Night Fae boss and the Necrolord boss. The Necrolord boss basically just mirrors a few Sire Denathrius abilities. So he does the Hand of Destruction that pulls you in. He also gives everyone a stack of this shit, and you get more stacks of this, and they're permanent. You cannot get rid of them by immuning, by death, anything. The Hand of Destruction is kind of wild. Like a lot of shit happens with that, but we'll talk about that in a second. But this boss does like a little stampede across the middle of the room of Night Fae creatures, and it spawns seeds. Now these seeds are kind of interesting. So they need to be healed to full. I'm trying to, similar to like Sun King kind of. You guys know how you healed those little phylactery things to full and they like healed the shit out of the boss? Okay, well this heals the shit out of the raid. When you heal one of these seeds to full in the middle, they not only give you a big burst healing to your raid, you'll see this one get topped right here most likely. I think. There, it just popped. You guys see it pop? It just gave everyone in the raid a 25% healing increase that stacks. Okay, you'll see it on his debuffs right here. He has like a 2-stack thing. That means he's taking 50% increased healing for 30 seconds, and you can refresh it with seeds. So like the idea in Mythic is going to be, you know, whenever you're taking huge damage, you want to pop one of these seeds for a big raid heal and then also increase your overall healing. So it's going to be like a little bit of healer micromanaging to make sure that you keep your stacks up of this basically and use the heals. There'll be some healers that are better than that than others. This is Anima Storm. It just like silences you if it goes over you or something like that. You just dodge it, right? So this is the Night Fae boss. If you got, yeah, I think Flex had a good tweet about this. If the prototype Pantheon doesn't just fully solidify the fact that Night Fae players are by far the most annoying, then like, I mean, just look at this fucking room right now. Look at this. Like, what's the point? Okay, now here's the Venthyr part, okay? The boss sucks you in, and when the Hand of Destruction explodes, it shoots 4 things in cardinal directions around your character. I'll pause it in like 2 seconds. Like that. If you get hit by any of these, so anyone who tested with more than 20 players probably had a few people hit by this. Yeah, very similar to Prideful, except if you get hit, you take damage and you're stunned for like a second and a half or something. So you could get Chain CC'd, and another thing if you get hit is you get a permanent Burden of Sin stack that does not go away. Actually, I think it might go away after they hit 50%, but not in the last phase, maybe? I don't remember. But you'll see him get stunned, right? So he has 2 stacks now. So yeah, that's basically how that works. Now that is these 2 phases together, right? So I'll let them phase the boss. So now they get the boss to 50%. Now all 4 bosses come out. I was a little concerned when I read this in the dungeon journal that you were not going to be able to move these bosses, and it was going to be like a multi-dot thing, like very similar to how some bosses have been in the past. I'm not going to name them for just the reason of not being called bald or old, but you get the idea. But for some reason, you can actually move and stack all of these bosses. You just get 4 target cleave. When was the last time you were able to 4 target cleave boss damage? Seriously, that does not happen. This is a very cool type of damage. So there's a couple of classes that are going to absolutely roast this kind of damage. It's gonna be really fun. But it's also, I will say one downside of this boss is it's a little bit of mechanic vomit. I do really like the interaction between the seeds. So the thing that owns you the most in this fight is the knockback from the Kyrian. That is the thing that you notice. So they healed 4 right away. In my opinion, or no, they just kept their stacks up, but they did continue to heal 4. You definitely want to micromanage those a little better. It doesn't ever go above 4, but you can keep refreshing it kind of, but you want to use it. You want to get the pops like during a higher damage portion of the fight. Like obviously this is heroic, it doesn't matter. They're probably not thinking about that. But on Mythic, you're going to really, like that's going to be a big healer job. You want those going off at the right times. You basically can solo heal 1 seed to do as much as like most raid cooldowns do in healing, which is super fucking OP. You do not want to overheal that. So like things like this is where they're dipping the most, right? The knockback from the Kyrian thing, this fucking owns you in this phase. Like a seed going off now would be sick, right? So then you just cleave them all down. I want to say, I knew they were going to do this in the last PTR build, and before we tested this, they added that if you kill any of these bosses, you have 20 seconds to kill every other boss. If there's anything still remaining, that boss will heal to 100%. Basically a wipe. I mean, you might be able to recover it. You'd have to kill every single boss from 100% to 0 in the phase where they're all 4 out. So it's definitely possible, just probably wipe. So you don't want that to happen. I kind of didn't want them to do that. And I'll explain why. Because it doesn't really leave you any creative choice. What it does is it makes you just have to like kind of deal with all of them to the end until it dies. What I would have liked for them to do, and I actually hope they change this, I think better design for this boss would be you can kill them and they don't heal, but it buffs other bosses. So if you were to just say, okay, I think the Venthyr guy is the hardest part by far. Cool, whatever. So you just, this phase starts down here. Look at the boss frames. You just fucking burn the Venthyr boss to 0. Single target. Kill that guy. But then you're making the choice, I want to remove these mechanics, but it buffs every other mechanic by 30%. So it's like, maybe you do still want to kill them staggered, but you do at least have the creative option of like, okay, it's actually this boss is so hard, we can actually kill it and deal with, you know, basically, if you were to say all of these are what 100% of their strength, you could buff these by enough to where even killing one still leaves you with like 450%. So it's even a technically harder boss, but you're removing mechanics. Can you deal with 3 bosses with increased mechanics rather than 4 with them not being buffed, right? You have to make a choice. I would have liked that much better. This reminds me of Enerva, where it seems like you have the illusion of choice of getting rid of some things early, but in reality, just like on Mythic Enerva, as opposed to Heroic, you don't really make a choice on what things you want to deal with. You just kind of kill the boss and don't interact with it at all. That's what this is. Now, they've done other council fights like that before, like Council of Blood was exactly that. There was a similar boss like that in the past as well. I just think it's a cooler version of a council fight than this. I just think this is mechanic vomit. Nothing really changes. You can deal with the hard overlaps with seeds. I think this fight has major potential. By the way, Mythic mechanics. So imagine all 4 bosses come out. I don't know how many times a phase it's going to happen. But do you guys remember Night Hunters in P1 Denathrius? The little, the Night Hunters that came out that you had to like have people group soak or whatever? Okay, those will spawn, I believe, the exact same animation and everything. And you have to hit the bosses with them to remove a debuff that makes them take 50% reduced damage. So like basically this fight on Mythic more or less is just this entire fight, but in every phase there's just Night Hunters. That is how this fight works. So I don't know what you guys think. This boss is like supposed to be, I guess this is literally in the spot of Hungering Destroyer, but it could be a little harder. You know what I mean? I would say there's a good chance this is like a nice healthy 5. It doesn't scream It doesn't scream like it's super interesting. It's cool because it's got like all the covenants, whatever, but like, and they could make it really hard. They could make any fight really hard with tuning, but I mean, like, all the mechanics are there for there to be really impossibly hard lineups. It could potentially be higher than 5, but I'm not, no, maybe it's higher. No, I'm going to give it like a 6 or a 7 because it's a good fight. Not to mention, no, I'm going to give it a 7, and here's why. Because I love the fact that they are letting you fucking 4-target cleave a raid boss. I actually don't know if they've ever done that. I feel like that's going to be really fun to DPS. That's why. All right. Now Lihuvim, or Lithium. Now, I want to point out, and this is funny, I actually had a like hour-long conversation with Roger at like 5 in the morning 2 nights ago, so the day before Anduin, or the night before Anduin testing, just like talking about random shit, just like the fights, just, you know, just like the normal talks we have. And we both were laughing so much on how we had no fucking clue what this boss was supposed to do going into testing. I don't know if anyone else tried to picture in their mind what like a fight looks like before heroic. That's a big job of ours. I want our raiders to visualize the fight before they do it so our heroic testing is more efficient. It's not important on a lot of bosses, but on harder ones, it's really, really good. The journal made no sense. You could tell the person who made that journal was for sure doing their first dungeon journal boss. It was like, what the fuck? It like the way it ended up turning out was this boss was just Kingaroth from Argus, basically, or Antorus. Basically, you do like one phase. Oh, this is gonna be so none of this stuff is supposed to be here. So it's kind of hard to give an idea, but that's like a knockback from the boss. Let's start from the beginning. You basically start with this boss alone, and there's like 4 automnas or whatever on each side. The boss gets to 100 energy. He lets you choose which of the 4 you want to kill. In heroic, you could have killed all 4. Obviously, on mythic, I assume they'll tune it to where you have to choose 1 or 2 to be alive, potentially. So if you're, you know, very similar to Kingaroth, right? Kingaroth was tuned to where you could not kill all 3, and you basically were forced to just pick 2 of the 3. This is just 4. The room is much bigger. I do have some issues with that, but overall the fight design is like very, very cool. So in this phase, he just basically gives people these moat debuffs. Let's see how they handle them. We should go to a later pull. If this is an early pull, it's probably gonna look like our first pull where the floor was completely covered with shit because there wasn't a system for it. So unstable moat comes out. What do? They stack them, good, or kinda. Oh, someone's gonna run into that. Oh my god. Okay. And then these circles that go out actually remove the moats. So in heroic, there was no reason to ever move. You could just put moats down and clear them. And then there's this knockback. The knockback is not as relevant when there's not moats around. I imagine on mythic, they'll change this a lot. I'll give you an idea of a couple of my potential mythic ideas for this, but this is a wing end boss. This should and could be very hard. So basically the idea is to do that. The only real issue with stacking them, especially in a heroic pug, is that people will get hit by them. And if you hit one, you blow up all of them and you basically die. Or are they going to clear it? Yeah, they are. So they're going to clear them. All right, so this is the boss phase. Nothing changes here. Okay, at 90 energy, 100 energy, the boss goes to the middle and activates all 4 of these ads. You have a certain amount of time. Hopefully you can see them on his boss frame. Looks like they're killing these 2. They lusted. Okay. And you kill them. See how the thing is gaining energy? You have to kill it before 100 energy. If you don't kill it before 100 energy, all the damage you did not matter, and it spawns this ad. So as you can see, it looks like they're only killing 1/2 of the room instead of all 4. So these 2 will die. Now the ads on the other side will animate, basically. So this guy was really funny in testing. He didn't do anything. He just kept throwing down a shield on top of himself, and he never moved. They'll obviously change that. But like anything in this guy's shield like takes no damage. The one on the left here, I forget, was this this wasn't the guy that fixated you, was it? Was this the guy that turned into a bunch of little guys? No. I actually don't remember what this guy does. He's not the fixate guy. I think we killed... I don't remember what this guy does. He does some shit. So, like, they're killing the ads now. He spawns untargetable ads. Oh, yeah. I see. Yeah. That's why I didn't remember. Because I just felt like we just tanked him and he didn't do anything, which is basically what happened. Okay, so that's that. And then there's 4 different kind of ads. And the interesting thing is they're random. Now, this may not be the case on Mythic because they might tune it for you to deal with certain ad sets. Like, for example, they might make it at when the boss is low and, like, it's the 4th time you've gotten ads. All 4 of them are this one ad, so you're forced to deal with 2 of these things, right? They could do that. But right now on Heroic, it was entirely random, including the ones on the pull. You could get basically any combination of ads in those 4 spots, on the pull even. So you basically had to improvise every pull on like where you wanted to go and what you wanted to do, which is interesting. I wonder if they'll continue that in Mythic. And then as you went farther, you basically just repeated this. In Mythic, I don't think they're going to let you do this. Right now in Heroic, you can just stack the moats, never pop them, and you can just keep removing them, and you can keep the boss in the same spot ever. In Heroic, in Mythic, I think one of two things is going to happen. They're either going to make them explode over time on their own, so you have to be smart about where you put them, because by the end of the fight, there will be a lot of room and area denial from the spell. Or they're going to spawn a bunch around you as well as on you. So basically the room is kind of fucked anyway. And then they'll treat it like the end of Ragnaros where, you know, you can only clear some of the room and you need to like, you know, be efficient where you actually clear space. They might make them spawn randomly, so you have to like clear a path in front of you. There's multiple really cool ways, bald boomer. There's multiple really cool ways for you to potentially deal with it. So I think overall this is a very cool fight. I love the fucking King Garoth mechanic. The whole, you have a certain amount of ads you can kill and you have to pick which ones you want to deal with, especially if it's random and you have to improvise. I fucking love that. I will say though, one small problem. This room is huge. So if you like, okay, let's go like raid plan, right? Okay. Just to give you an idea of how big this room is, I'm not kidding. If you put down a Warlock Gateway right here, it would go to here. I'm not kidding. That is right. That's the scale here. That's a max distance fucking gate. So if you have your whole raid like right here and you're like, okay, this is cool. We'll do like, I don't know. We'll just like fucking go over here and just like, oh, I'm going to kill this bad and I'm going to kill this that. And you split up and half your raid goes here and half your raid goes here. Okay, cool. And you just ignore these two. That could work and it would make sense why the room is that big. But if you want to like send a group here, and send like a really mobile group far, you could even have a gate for them. If you have like the boss here, you could have a gate for them. They take the gate, they use leap, they charge the ad, they kill it, and now what? They walk probably 20 seconds back to the boss. Like, it's way too fucking big. The fight needs to be tuned to where you can only ever kill two, so you basically pick a side of the room, then that's fine. But then the other issue with the room being so big is it makes no sense why you can just never deal with this moat mechanic. Your room can be clear all the time, which is why I'm saying I think they're going to make these expire after a certain amount of time, or they're going to make random ones spawn and you have to use the circles to clear in a direction around the circle you have to go. So an example would be like, let's just say there's a bunch of little shitty, I'll use these little arrows right here for let's just say there's a bunch of moats, whatever, there's like a ton of moats, right? So like you with the circle around you would want to like, your raid is here, and then like you would want to go in like right here and like clear a bunch of these things. So when you get rid of them, and then now your raid can go this way. And then you have to like, does that make sense? So like for the room to be that big, you need to have a reason for it to be that big, which is there's so much shit on the ground and we need to find a spot to operate in P1. So it's either that or there's multiple ways they can do it. But basically with the room being this large, you have to create some kind of innate room denial that you have to deal with on top of these ads, or you're just going to keep the boss here the whole fight, the raid right behind it, and then you're never going to move. You're just going to like put the moats here, clear them, move back, and then one guy's going to come in and just fucking clear it and then go back to the group. That's it. That's all you're going to do. And then you're going to kill these two and then like send a far group or something, and then that's it. And that doesn't sound like what this boss should be on Mythic. So I imagine this boss will be a lot better, but as a design in Heroic, I'm just going to go ahead and say this is a solid, I think it's like a solid 8 or a 9. I think I'm going with a 9. I think this is going to be an absolute banger. I think this is going to definitely be the hardest boss of these first like bit. I think Halondrus we'll get into in a second. It was kind of a meme. This boss has some problems, but it's definitely not a bad boss. Okay, so let's go ahead to maybe the worst boss in the raid. Young Money Skolex, the worm. All right, so he's a worm. You fight him and he's immobile unless you move him. To move him, the entire raid stacks up and he burrows and then he moves to that spot and he also removes all your stacks of dust. This boss is a very simple... Oh, the Wretch is also fucking massive. Dust goes on the raid in a various amount of ways. I'm not going to like fully explain it. It's not super important. But basically, you just get a bunch of stacks. You want to heal through it as long as possible. You remove your stacks and you move the boss and then you continue. In Mythic, there will be room denial because where he does these... If you get hit by those circles or this wretch in general will leave circles on the ground, kind of how it will appear. You can actually kind of see it. So basically, there's going to be pools on the ground where wretch is there. I think they might have actually coded the mythic mechanic into the heroic animation. So let me slow it down. We don't have great POV of this, but watch the wretch go off. Okay. Do you see how it has little projectiles going out like this? Look where they land. Look how they land. Do you see like where they're landing? That's probably where the pools are going to be. So there might be room to like go back in and bait, for example. Now the other thing is like as the boss gets lower or every time you make him go under, which they probably do soon. So if you stack the whole raid, he goes underground and then he's going to burrow and go to the location that you all stacked up on. If you get hit by this thing as he's burrowing, you die. You do want to get hit by that thing though, because getting hit by that thing removes all of your dust stacks. So now they didn't remove their dust stacks, so they're just going to have to burrow again. But that's basically this fight. That's it. The caveat is every time you make him burrow, he does 10% more damage for the rest of the fight. So every time you burrow him, yes, you remove your stacks, but also everything he's doing is 10% harder. It hits you 10% harder. There have been worse bosses in the game at this position in the raid, but it's a 2. It's not a 1. A 1 is impressively bad. It's a 2 at the very most. Very not fun to play. Okay, so that's Skolex. Now it's Artificer Xy'mox. New Xy'mox. Which we knew Xy'mox was going to come back. He was a popular boss. So this boss is a little bit different. So the last time you had Xy'mox, you had rifts go out, wormholes go out every like 20 or 30 seconds or something, and you replace them. This time you place them once per phase, but they have a very similar interaction, but you use them for different reasons. In other Xy'mox, first Xy'mox, you did it to deal with mechanics on the far side of the room and to get the tank thing away. Now the tank thing grips you, and there are rings to dodge. So this is the intermission. They just popped all cooldowns. This boss had hilariously low health. These little things you guys see flying around the room are actually tank frontals, except they just coded them to instantly follow where the tank is and use a reticle. So this isn't bugged. It's just that these bosses are actually on the pixel shooting them at the tank. So where the tanks are moving around, these frontals are also instantly moving. They're just doing full damage, so you're not going to see any of the mechanics of the fight. Okay, here we go. Forerunner rings. So the ring comes out, and it's going to come out from the outside, and it's going to kill you if you touch it, basically. So I don't think they knew this was going to happen, because now they're doing this. They got so lucky. Wait, they got so lucky. The boss phased as they got gripped, and the ring fucking disappeared in their face. Oh, so you get to see the last phase a little bit. Hopefully they just stayed alive for a while and didn't try to kill it. So now they have the idea of like, okay, these rings go here and we deal with them this way. So in the last phase, this is what you have going on. I won't even bother you with the intermediate phase. But in the last phase, this is Hyperlight Spark Nova. When it goes off, you have to be 3 yards spread and it bounces around. If it bounces to you while you are within 3 yards of someone else, it like owns both of you, gives you each a stack. So in this phase, the rings go out and in. So this thing's going down, so it's about to go out. So you'd want to potentially port into it. But at the same time, a tank mechanic's going to go out, right? And then another one's coming. And then the tank and the tank's going to grip you at the same time. Also, you have to 3 yards spread, by the way. So yeah, it's a lot of mechanics. So that's basically the fight. It's cool. Now, I will say there are some more ads in Mythic, and I want you guys to hopefully see parts of the room here. Okay, you guys see these? There's these bridges. There's 3 platforms on this fight. There's also 3 intermissions. There's also these things over there that look like other relics where beams could come out of. And on Mythic, there's an ad that goes and tries to like fucking fuck up the ring somehow. I don't remember. So I'm thinking there might be bridges in Mythic where you actually interact with the other platforms during the intermissions instead of it all being on this platform. That's some tinfoil. I have no like information to support that. It's a complete guess. It could be pretty cool if that happens. We'll see. It's kind of hard to tell because Mythic's going to change the fight a lot. But I'd go ahead and give Xy'mox a solid like 6 or a 7. Okay, second to last boss we have tested. Halondrus. So this is like a little scorpion leg bitch. So this is interesting. Where is this in the testing? This is their first pull. Okay. These things go around the room. They have a line going to the boss that like burns you if you touch the line. I don't remember if those were actually working. I don't remember anyone ever dying to this. But like you're not supposed to be able to touch these lines. So you have to like kind of move around. The tank frontal breaks the beam on these. It wasn't evident in the dungeon journal that the tank frontal broke the shields on the thing, but that's how it worked. Okay, so they break the shield and they all kill it. After you break the shield, you take raid damage until it's dead. Once you kill an obelisk, the boss will take more damage. So I think the boss takes like 10% or 20% more damage based on everything that's alive. So like he only takes 100% damage when all the pylons are dead in each phase. Also, there's a soak mechanic very similar to Ashvane. So like you guys see these ephemeral pools that are out? They kind of go out as the phase goes on. Oh, there's also these things. They explode, so you have to drop them and then get out of them. These little ephemeral pools will spawn a ball. Every time you soak a ball, not only do you get a stack, but it also does damage to the raid when you do it. So these right here. So those, if those hit the boss, you wipe. If you soak one, you take like 500% increased damage from soaking a second one. So you can't soak more than one at a time unless you use like an immunity or like a dispersion or something. And that's how the phase goes. So this is phase 1. This is just phase 1. There are 3 times this boss does this phase. When he gets to 80%, he's going to start walking to the next room. He pulls his little robot legs out of the ground, and then he stomps. Every time he stomps, it does raid damage. And also, there's a really annoying debuff and knockback. There's debuffs in both phases, but there's really annoying knockback. Okay, relocation form. Oh, they lust! I like this. So we did the same thing. Now, this boss in the middle of this testing got buffed with triple the health. Never worry about health in testing. Health is a scaling knob. None of the health that they're testing these bosses on right now matters. They're going to change it with double legendaries. They're going to change it closer to the raid with like heroic eye level. Right now, I think all these eye level for these testings were done with our current gear, which will probably be a little higher by the time you get to Halondrus for most players. So they tripled the testing at one point, but because this is an early pull, they have not done that yet. We did the same thing because we basically were like, he does this 2 times, right? The next time he phases it at 50%. So we wanted to test what happens if you get him below 50% before he gets to the second room. It looks like that's what they were testing as well. Yeah, we almost killed him. We actually had to not kill him because we just brought like a bunch of moonkins and just fucking owned him. But yeah, they ended up like tripling the testing for the last couple of pulls. So what happens during this is you get these debuffs that have to be dispelled. You'll see the people ticking down. That's what they have. And then when this thing goes off, there's a knockback. Keep in mind the boss is also just like doing damage to you every time he steps. And then he's going to break down this wall and go into his next room. Now at 50%, he phases again. There's supposed to be an entire other like little obelisk phase right here. But because they got the boss to below 50, I believe those won't even spawn. And he's going to immediately phase. Oh no. Wait, they might get the... No, they're going to phase it. Yeah. Okay, so he's gonna like stick his little feet in the ground. And then he's going to immediately leave. And then do it again. So now this is where a normal phase would happen. Only for like this pull and the next pull would this happen. They ended up buffing his health, so you couldn't do this. And obviously this won't happen on live. But after this, you go to the end, and he does the second phase. This time there's like a little double knockback. It's going to happen like a little bit up here. Hopefully he lives to see it. It's like knockback 1, knockback 2, and then like a third knockback. And at the same time, you have to spread. And there's a knockback that happens. I can't see it, but I think I remember the timing. The knockback is like 3, 2, 1 there. And then it knocks you back into your thing if you're not careful, or knocks you off. I didn't even know it was possible to fall off actually until right now. So basically you just have to like, it's like a little bit of a dance you have to learn. And then in the last phase, he has 6 obelisks, but he dematerializes them one by one. And it's random. So the tanks have to actually hit the one that he debuffs, and then you have to kill it quickly. So the last phase is like a little different. But basically, that's the whole fight. Yeah, Halondrus is a solid 7. It can't be. It's not a 10 at all. It's not a 9. It's in the spot of the raid where Council of Blood was. Council of Blood was a pretty good boss. It's pretty cool conceptually, honestly. It didn't play that well in Heroic, but it's like, if we're looking at concept, that's probably like the cool thing. I'd say it's probably an 8. All right, Big Daddy Anduin, the last boss that got tested. I need to find a pull of whoever got the farthest in this fight, and I will not talk about any phases that were not publicly tested at all. All right, so you fight Anduin, and he's a boss. Hopebreaker happens. It's just raid AoE, and it gives you a dot that never fucking goes away and just stacks up over time. Indefinite dot. Cannot remove it. He puts out Divine Stars. Now, there was something interesting with this. They're running with 25, man. If you ran under 20, there was like 1 less Divine Star or something like that. It like only did 1 at a time instead of 2. We ended up dropping to 19, like near the end of testing to try that. Then this barrier happens. Think of this barrier. Think of it as one giant veil. So you guys know on Sylvanas, you got a veil. It gave you a debuff. And 75% of the healing you would then receive would actually go into healing off that debuff. That's what this is. You step into it, and any healing done to you, 75% of it heals off this barrier's total amount. And now if you heal it all the way, when it expires, you still take like a 36k hit or something, which is pretty big. But if you have not healed off all of it, it will give you an absorb per the amount left to everyone in the raid, which is really bad, like a healing absorb. So you go in, and you just, you know, you heal, you see it, it goes away, it's gone. Okay, so like when that expires, yeah, you get it. Now the boss is going to do a frontal and like send people down to a phase. So think about getting hit by the frontal on Sired and Athreus. We'll talk about Blasphemy first. And then whoever gets hit goes down and like does another phase. Hopefully we get some POV of that. The main mechanic in P1 is Blasphemy. This mechanic does not exist in P2 and is a completely different version of this mechanic in the last phase. But you'll get it, and then everyone will have a light and dark debuff. This is a Star Augur mechanic. How it works: you as a dark debuff have to touch someone else with a light debuff, and then both of you get rid of it. Both of your debuffs are gone. If you touch another dark debuff, or someone without a debuff at all, like this tank right here, you will blow up and do a bunch of damage around you. You don't want that to happen. Also, when this expires, if you don't complete it, you'll also take damage. Not lethal damage. This is actually something really interesting. Blasphemy and Heroic only lasts 6 seconds. That is not a lot of time. Basically, if you didn't complete it in the last like 1 second, that was fucking it. You just like ran to the outside of the room, popped a personal, and didn't kill other people, right? Now in Mythic, it's 8 seconds, which is going to mean potentially a few different things. There's going to be a lot more of them. It's going to be something that you can't just live if you fuck it up and you die. Or it's basically a raid wipe mechanic like old Star Augur. Very possible. But in Mythic, you actually have more time to deal with this in Heroic. In Heroic, it's kind of intended to where if there's no one around you, to not complete it with it being only 6 seconds. So you'll probably maybe even see a few people in the raid. Like this, see, that could not... That could not have been the right thing to do. But okay, yeah. But like, yeah, you get it. Okay, so they do a Kingsmorn, and then you go down. You go down. Okay, great. This guy's going down. So then you'll see 4 ads in the middle, Anduin's Hope. Those can be healed. Healing each one of these will give the boss 5 energy. And killing each of these small ads, there will be 4 small ads as well from each corner of the room. They will also give you 5 energy. So total, you have 40 energy now total from just the small ads and the healer ads and the DPS ads. There's also one big ad called Anduin's Despair. It has a circle around it. The circle reduces healing received and increases damage taken by 100%. So you want it on top of the Anduin's Doubt, but not on the Anduin's Hope. And then obviously you get it, and then you kill it. They spend a ton of people down. If you kill Anduin's Despair, you get 20 energy. So look at Anduin's energy. You can get 60 energy per phase. Obviously, getting him to 100 phases him. So they just did 55. That's fine. So what that does then, they didn't do these ads in time. Getting 55 is 1 energy off, or 5 energy off. That means the next phase only has to get 45 energy. So they give you a little bit of extra leeway per phase, so you don't have to do both of them perfectly, which is good for Heroic. And while that's happening, the upstairs is doing their own phase. They get another barrier, they get another Blasphemy. You get the idea. And the Divine Stars are pretty real. You do not want to get hit by these. Those Divine Stars were fucking real, man. And then it does that again, and for you to go down. Now, keep in mind, this boss is not health % based. It is entirely energy based. So, if you wanted to, assuming there was nothing stopping you from doing it, I'm not sure if they tested it, so I won't talk about it at all. You know, you could maybe stay in this phase even longer. Who knows? They give you the options, which is cool. Okay, so I'm assuming they phase into P2. They do Blasphemy. Oh, nice. I got it. Okay, so they have 95 energy. He's casting Blasphemy, and I believe they skip it, right? This is the epic shit chat. Are you guys ready to bat chest out of your fucking mind if you remember what Lich King was like, you fellow baldies? This is when WoW was the best, bat chest. There he is, boys. The fucking Lich King. Calling in an army of the dead. Having Remorseless Winter on himself. Spawning fiendish souls that are jumping on people. And then a monstrous soul. So basically, you just like have to hit the Remnant of the Fallen King here. I want you guys to understand how this works. Anduin takes 150% of the damage you do to Remnant of the Fallen King. So technically, the most boss damage you'll ever get on Anduin is actually shitting on the Lich King. So there's a reason for this phase, right? At the same time, you're dealing with his Army of the Dead, with these ads that are giving you a debuff that doesn't go away until the end of the intermission. And then you have to kill this Monstrous Soul. The Monstrous Soul doesn't really matter until it hits 30. This guy's FPS is great. The Monstrous Soul hits 35, so now they should full target this soul and kill it. Doesn't have a ton of health. Oh no. They're not hitting it. This is going to hurt. Oh, boy. Oh, the link! And that's why you bring a Resto Shaman to testing. Yes. That is why you do that. They would have lost half their raid without that. And then I'm assuming from the first one, and now with a dead DPS, they're probably going to die to the next Monstrous Soul, or do they see P2? Let's see. Oh, they let both. How did they see P2 letting both go off? They have another link. Shaman gang. Oh, and then okay, well, yeah, this they probably don't see very far. What do they do to the ads? Okay, they beamed one. Yeah, so basically, P2 is the exact same as P1. It's just no blasphemy, and it spawns these ads, which cast a fear that fears the whole raid and does damage to you. So basically, this replaces blasphemy. So you have to deal with 2 sets of these ads spawning. And then after that, there's another Lich King intermission. And then the boss goes into the last phase. I won't talk about it at all, just reading stuff off the Dungeon Journal. It does a dire blasphemy, which can be removed by going into a new version of a barrier. It's much different than the other 2 phases. But it looks like this is as far as they got. But yeah, and you do the same thing. You go down in this phase as well. You do the same energy thing to phase him. And then it's the last phase where there's no more downstairs phase and everyone's upstairs. That's it. So far, I will tell you, I heard from someone on their team that this boss was definitely overtuned. That seems obvious for where this boss is in the raid. Like, it was clearly, like, probably a little too hard. It probably won't be that bad on Heroic, but it's definitely a sick boss. It's got all the right things. Outside of the, like, bat chest intermission phase, it is a really cool intermission phase that you're not just killing an ad for no reason, right? It's fucking boss damage. Like, every bit of the fight matters for boss damage. There's, like, basically, these are, like, burn phases. Like, yeah, you have to deal with the ads, but it's also, like, where you're shitting on the boss the most. Hopefully no stop DPS here, but who knows. Anyways, Anduin's a banger fight. Now, I won't go over the last 3 because they're not going to be tested, but Anduin, it's hard to say 10. Okay, here's why I think Anduin isn't fair. Because Anduin's in, like, the Sludge Fist spot. Anduin's in, like, the middle of the raid wall spot. But I don't think it was created that way. Anduin right now is not end boss tier, but it's close. And I think that's because Anduin was supposed to be the final boss of this raid. And there was supposed to be a 9.3, barring no delays. And Jailer was supposed to be the 9.3 end boss. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. So Anduin was almost created with the development mindset of an end boss. And it seems a little bit better. So I'm going to give it like a 9 or a 10. And I think that's fine. But know that it's kind of unfair because you're just if you put basically any end boss in the middle of a raid and compare it against other bosses in that spot, it would get insane stuff. Now, speaking of that, we won't get a lot of WoW content for the next couple weeks. So Blizzard historically takes off for Christmas, and they usually don't come back until around the 5th of January or the first week of January after New Year's. So my new guess for this patch is Tuesday, February 22nd, with the raids coming out at the beginning of March. That's my new guess, and I'm 100% right, and I'm not wrong. So know that.